Korean veteran Major Alistair Fitton, sole survivor of the suicidal Hill 329 defence, is suing Harold Pusey for libel. A professional military historian, Professor Pusey has implied in a paragraph of his book Sunset of Arms that Major Fitton survived because he abandoned wounded and dying men to save his skin. Agreed documents in court tend to establish that, in fact, Major Fitton could not have been attempting to ferry wounded across the Taedong River at the time of the final devastating assault, as the official record claims. And also that the radio transmitter on Hill 329, supposed to have been destroyed by enemy gunfire, was in perfect working order, so that Major Fitton could have contacted brigade before leaving his post. Morton Lass, an ex-tank commander who was briefly seconded to Hill 329 to assist Major Fitton, has come from the United States to give evidence in the Crown Court and has just made a rather alarming statement.
I landed only, about 50 yards from us, killed a guy. When the dirt settled, I thought I heard Fitton. It was a sound like dry sobbing. Then he looked up at me and suddenly he said that He suddenly said, was there some way that I could get him out of there in the tanks with me? Because he'd just made up his mind he wasn't sticking around there to get killed for nothing.
You're quite sure those were the words that Major Fitton used, Mr. Lass?
Yes.
And what did you reply?
Nothing. I was a bit surprised. I guess you don't expect to hear that sort of thing from an officer commanding an operation, even a pretty hopeless one. Then later, Major Fitton said something else.
What was that?
Well, it was calmer and more thought out, if you know what I mean. Major Fitton said that even though he was a regimental soldier, he was fed up with what he called the army and its murderous ways. He asked me if I had ever heard of Talleyrand and what he had said about his achievements in the French Revolution. I said no. And Fitton told me that Talleyrand had afterwards said to his friends, I survived.
And what meaning did you attach to that, Mr. Lass?
Well, I sure didn't think I was being told that Major Fitton liked the job he was on and was thinking of spinning it out to last the rest of the season.
Apart from the time that Major Fitton shouted at you, demanding to know where the ambulance patrols were, did he make any specific mention of his wounded?
Not that I recall.
Well, did he show signs of great concern for them? Anxiety for their safety? Worry for their ultimate fate?
Not while I was there, but that does not mean that Major...
No, of course not, Mr. Lass. Thank you.
Mr. Lass, when Major Fitton asked you to get him out in the tanks, because he'd just made up his mind that he wasn't sticking around to get killed for nothing, those were the precise words?
Yes.
How did he say them exactly?
How?
Yes. Solemnly, with obvious feeling, or perhaps in a jocular fashion?
Jocular? There was nothing funny going on around right then. We just missed being killed. I thought I said a shell hit damn near us and
Yes, the dirt settled, and then you heard a sound like dry sobbing from Major Fitton.
Yes.
Now, what does that mean exactly? Was the Major crying, in tears?
No, I didn't say that. He was just making this gasping sound.
Almost like a nervous laugh.
Laugh?
Well, it's at least a possibility if he isn't crying, isn't it? I mean, some men react to extreme danger in this manner, I believe, by bursting into breathy gasps of laughter.
Ma'am, I sure didn't think Major Fitton was laughing.
You took what he said seriously.
Yes?
Get me out of here in those tanks of yours. I'm not sticking around to get killed for nothing. Now, Mr. Lass, wouldn't you agree that words like that could be intended to convey a rather dry, ironic sense of humor?
Now, look, ma'am, I was there. I heard him say it. It was not anything out of the Milton Berle show.
Yes, I suppose it is rather a British way of making a joke.
Beg your pardon?
I was just reflecting that we British have our own peculiar ways of being funny. However, you took what he said at face value, and you made no reply.
Right.
Why was that? Surely, if ever a request demanded some response, it was this one?
Well, I didn't get it not properly. It seemed like such a crazy thing to say. I just couldn't believe that Major Fitton was...
You weren't going to say serious, were you?
On the level, actually.
And yet Major Fitton never referred to the matter again. He merely made some reference to being fed up with the army, which one can quite understand in his position. And then he told you that anecdote of Talleyrand, saying his greatest achievement in the revolution was to have survived.
Mere British humor, I suppose.
Oh, I think it's beyond question that the last joke was in fact French, Mr. Lass. Are you saying of Major Fitton at Hill 329 that he was in a state of moral cowardice?
Well, he was real jumpy. Spooked even, if that's what you mean.
That's precisely not what I mean, Mr. Lass. Was Major Fitton behaving in a frightened, craven fashion?
He was going to ground every time a gun fired. He was browbeating that little corporal on the RT, Bentley or whatever his name was, really having a go at him because Brigade would not issue him with orders to pull out. Now, that's symptomatic, I guess.
Symptoms aren't diseases, Mr. Lass, and whatever the condition of Major Fitton's courage, there is absolutely nothing to say that it will be the same 24 hours later, is there?
No.
Because a man seems in a blue funk today doesn't mean he'll seem in a blue funk tomorrow. Because someone fails to appreciate British humour this week doesn't mean they won't be laughing at it the next.
Well, I don't see that...
Comment, Miss Tate.
Isn't it so, Mr. Lass?
Sure.
Thank you, that's all.
May this witness now be released, my lord?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Mr. Lass.
I call Ronald Hartstrong.
Ronald Hartstrong.
Hey, it's Yank!
Where did you
I didn't know you were connected with
Crazy
this.
bastard.
Bastard yourself.
Silence in court.
Am I to understand that you two gentlemen know each other?
Yes, my lord. It's a strange coincidence, but during the Korean campaign, my unit was pinned down with a group of Australians, and Digger here was their commander. I didn't even know his name was...
Hartstrong, Ron Hartstrong.
I
You haven't lost your punch.
Very moving. However, this is a court of law, and I must direct that anything in the nature of a servicemen's reunion must be postponed until a further occasion. Now, will you be so good as to take the witness box, Mr. Hartstrong?
What is your religion?
Church of England.
Take the testament in your right hand and read aloud the words on this card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Your name is Ronald Hartstrong, and you live at Cranston Station, Blacktree Point,
Wirrawar Ally.
Beg your pardon?
Wirrawar Ally, my lord. It's a place in New South Wales with a double L.
With a double L, of course.
You are a sheep farmer, Mr. Hartstrong.
Station manager, yes.
Very nice. And as we've already learned, you were on active service in Korea in 1950.
That's right.
In December of that year, were you somewhere near the emplacement known as Hill 329?
Yes, I was.
Well, just to avoid any possible confusion, this was, of course, long before you made the acquaintance of Mr. Lass.
Yank? Oh, yeah, sure, you bet.
Yes. Well, now, would you tell us what you were doing near Hill 329?
Yeah, well, it was a bit of a rare go, if you'd like to know. We Aussies and New Zealanders had been lumped together with the a couple of British regiments to form what then got to be known as the 27th Commonwealth Brigade. So we got the same sort of crackpot orders. On the morning of December the 10th, I was assigned a patrol and just told to go and find out if the Chinese across the Tuk Chinese stretch of the Taidong River strike.
Now, you were on the south bank of the river, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
And Hill 329 is on the north.
Yes. Well, I went careful as I approached the Hill 329 area. I knew a holding operation was going on there, and I could hear the mortars loud and clear.
Now, this is actually rather important, Mr. Hartstrong. The position was active. That is, fighting was going on. You can testify to that.
Yeah, well, it wasn't Randwick Racecourse on a Sunday. A stray shell landed in the river not more than 200 feet from us when we got close.
And how close, in fact, did you get?
Oh, about half a mile from the emplacement.
And then did something happen that you would like to tell the court today?
Sure. We were pushing through a bamboo clump, going real easy, when I heard something approaching. I thought it must have been an animal by the racket it was making, but no, it turned out to be a man, all wet and at the end of his tether, a British major.
You see that same man in court today, Mr. Armstrong?
Yeah, that's him there, the plaintiff?
Yeah.
In the case, Major Alistair Fitton.
Now, you say that Major Fitton was at the end of his tether. What do you mean by that? Was he exhausted?
Yeah, but he was quite plainly battle-shocked, too. He was shaken like a leaf, not sure what he was doing.
And what did you do?
Oh, routine procedure. Checked his discs, tried to get some sense out of him, but he couldn't seem to string two words together. Then one of my blokes remembered there was supposed to be an ambulance lorry passing a point called Brooklyn Bridge, about 3 miles back down the river at 1100 hours. So we figured maybe we better get Major Fitton there. I mean, apart from anything else, he was wet right through and it was cold enough to freeze the it was pretty cold, my lord.
So you took Major Fitton to Brooklyn Bridge?
Yeah, we couldn't be sure it was still there, mind. It was only a pontoon the Yanks had put in to help with the retreat, but there it was, as large as life. So we left Major Fitton there for the Zambucks and shot through.
You left him there?
Yeah, well, there was nothing much else we could do for him.
I see. Well, did you leave him on the north side or the south side of the bridge?
On the north side, we took him across.
Now, all this time, Major Fitton had said nothing to you? Nothing at all?
Well, yeah, he said something at the very end.
And what was that?
Well, it was weird. When we started to leave him, he panicked or something and suddenly started to say, "Don't let them kill me now," over and over again.
Now, let us be quite precise about this, Mr. Hardstrong. Seeing you and your patrol leave, Major Fitton said, "Don't let them kill me now," and repeated that phrase over and over again.
Yeah, that's it.
And did you make a full report of this entire matter at the time?
Oh, to my own mob, sure. But the way I heard it, the British didn't get a look at our record.
Thank you, Mr. Hardstrong.
Claire, wait!
So as far as you can testify, then, by the time you arrived on the scene, Major Fitton might well have had reason to end his engagement and seek, perfectly honourably, to evacuate the post.
There was the gunfire. I heard the gunfire.
British gunfire, Mr. Hardstrong, or Chinese? Is it possible to tell? Again, you tell us that at the post known as Brooklyn Bridge, when you and your patrol started to leave Major Fitton, he began to say over and over again, "Don't let them kill me now. Don't let them kill me now."
Yes.
Now, I want to ask you a very exact question here. Is it beyond the bounds of possibility that what Major Fitton actually said was, "Don't let him kill me now. Don't let him kill me now"?
Him?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's possible, I suppose, yeah. I mean, anybody can make a mistake between them and him, but I thought he said them.
That's all.
And that, my lord, concludes the case for the defence.
Thank you. You may leave the witness box, Mr. Hartstrong.
My lord, in the course of this hearing, things have been said directly and indirectly which reflect gravely on the plaintiff. Now, I will show that these slurs on his character are entirely without foundation, and that thus the appreciation of his conduct at Hill 329 is expressed by Professor Harold Pusey in his book, Sunset of Arms, constitutes a grave and reprehensible libel. To this end, I need only to call the plaintiff himself, Major Alistair Fitton. Would you take the box?
What is your religion?
Church of England.
Take the testament in your right hand and read out aloud the words on this card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Major Alistair Fitton?
Yes, yes.
And you live at Inverleith Cottage, Wootton Moor, Derbyshire?
Yes, that's right.
Now, Major Fitton, it is suitable, I suppose, to address you as Major, even though you have been retired from the Army now for some years.
Yes, I don't mind. It's the sort of thing that sticks to a man, I suppose.
In fact, you come from a military family, don't you, Major?
Yes, I suppose so. My father and my uncle were both professional soldiers. My father-in-law was a military strategist. He had a hand in the planning of the Normandy invasion.
And when did you retire from the army, Major Fitton?
1957.
Why exactly?
Well, that was about as soon after Korea as I could respectably get out. Now, I've been invalided home after certain developments in that campaign and transferred to staff. But love had died between the army and me. I'd had a belly full of soldiering.
A belly full of soldiering.
And, yes, indeed. A great deal has been said in this courtroom today about Hill 329 and how I'm supposed to behave there.
Yes,
Now,
Major,
I'd like to make it quite clear that a great deal of what has been said is true in its way. I did think it was a pointless damned action to have to fight, considering the way my men were, and I did spend a great deal of my time on Hill 329 trying to get brigade to rescind suicidal orders.
Yes, I think we ought
what's
to
more,
stick to
I did fly into a very violent temper when Lass came up with those Shermans and they couldn't hurt the enemy. Seemed to me typical of the bungling and the idiocy that had been going on all through. Now, the Americans knew how to fight that campaign in Korea, running as soon as they were hit, regrouping at a respectable distance, and then fighting back. Professor Pusey is not wrong about that, you know. Not at all. Not wrong at all.
Now, Major Fitton, Morton Lass has testified that after an uncomfortably near miss from a shell, you asked him if he would get... Major Fitton. Major Fitton, you asked Morton Lass, could he get you out of there in his tanks because you weren't sticking around to get killed for nothing? Now, did you in fact say something like that?
Yes.
Just those
I
words?
may have said something like that. Well, perhaps...
Did you mean
I don't remember it exactly. Seriously? No, good God, no. I thought you'd clear that up. It was a kind of joke in its way. I couldn't have left Hill 329. It wasn't remotely possible. I had wounded there.
Wounded, yes, and these were your main concern, naturally.
Naturally.
And how many wounded at this point?
Well, 8 when Lass came up. There about 12 of those that I'd brought with me had bought it, and there were only a dozen men left in the firing line. It was pretty grim.
An invidious situation for you, Major.
It was a long time ago. The ambulance patrol, I kept requesting that not coming up. It's that kind of thing that comes back to bother you.
Yes. The official record tells us, Major, that when the final attack came, effectively ending the Hill 329 defense, you were attempting to transfer wounded across the Taidong River. Is that correct?
No. No, that's not correct.
It isn't correct.
No.
The official record also tells us that as the sole survivor of Hill 329, you were eventually picked up by an ambulance patrol on the northern bank of the Taidong River. Is that correct?
No, that's false as well. The fact is, I was picked up by some Australians on the south bank of the river.
Well, it looks as though we're faced with certain anomalies then, Major, which we need to clear up.
Yes, the true story of Hill 329 has never been told. Under the circumstances, it seems that I'm to be the one to break it publicly. Well, after Lass and the tanks went, I got onto brigade and told them just how useless they'd been. I expect I was still in a pretty bad state of mind. Anyway, an airstrike was promised, and we settled down to wait for it. 36 hours, heavy fighting, men dying. Finally, a direct hit on the top of the ridge killed the last of my defenders. And Corporal Batley announced also that the radio telephone was out of action. Well, I said that was just fine. It meant I could at last act on my own initiative. And what I proposed to do was to end hostilities and get the wounded out. But Batley said, no, that was not the way it was going to be.
Batley said that, the corporal?
He was the last man on his feet, you see. He must have been in an even worse state of mind than me. He drew a revolver on me.
Corporal Batley threatened your life?
He said I was to go down the hill before him and to build a raft at the river, some kind of float anyway, and he proposed to cross the river on it.
And you?
Oh, I don't know. I was so dazed I simply obeyed at that point. But we hadn't got more than 50 yards down the hillside when the enemy launched that final assault. I hit the ground. Batley caught a direct blast and died at once. I tried to get back to the wounded in a lull, but they were all hit too. There wasn't a man alive on that hill save me. Now, I don't remember too well after that. Somehow I managed to get across the river. It seemed to me that Corporal Batley was still behind me with the revolver.
And you feared him? What he might do?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you, Major Fitton. However, there remains a grave discrepancy between what you've now told us and the official record. Can you explain that for us in any way?
I can. When the ambulance patrol delivered me back to brigade, I lied about what had happened.
You lied?
Yes. It seemed to me that the regiment would be brought into disrepute if the truth were told. We'd all been under fearful, inhuman pressure. In the event, Batley had snapped. Well, that could have happened to me, to any one of us.
So you reported that Corporal Batley had in fact been helping you to get the wounded out when the final attack came, and you were the sole survivor?
Yes.
Now, why didn't you report that you'd crossed to the southern side of the river, though, Major?
Oh, I didn't think that could be explained away so readily. I didn't know why I'd done it, you see. It never occurred to me that an Australian patrol would put in a report that would one day emerge to find me out.
Yes. Now about the RT on Hill 329, Major. You believed Corporal Batley when he told you that it was out of order, did you?
Oh, yes, of course. I had no reason not to.
And finally, why have you never told this story before?
Well, mainly to protect Batley's reputation, I think. He was a good soldier. Circumstances, the wrong sort of orders that caused him to behave as he did. Our superiors must bear the responsibility for what happened on Hill 329. Obsolete notions of warfare. Those men died for nothing, you know. My men.
Thank you, Major Fitton. That is all.
Major Fitton, we're expected to believe all you've just told us, are we?
I beg your pardon?
This farrago of fancy, this romantic and completely unsubstantiated tale, you want us to believe it? Well, let us see if we can extract the meagre fact from the fantasy. Firstly, you were on the south bank of the river when you were picked up, weren't you?
Yes.
Well, that means that you'd left your post against orders, doesn't it?
No, only after everyone else was dead there.
Secondly, your radio telephone was in working order.
No, I don't see how
Wasn't
I can be...
it?
Yes.
So that in theory, at least, you could have contacted brigade and asked for further orders.
No, I had been told that the radio telephone was finished.
Thirdly, you turned in a report to your superiors that was not in fact true, suggesting that you had in fact not crossed the river and that you were attempting to get out the wounded when the final enemy assault came.
Only to protect a fellow soldier.
Oh, come.
No, it was necessary to lie.
A fellow soldier, Batley, an obscure corporal whom, according to other reports, you've been browbeating and bullying throughout the entire action. You were concerned about his posthumous reputation?
He was one of my men.
A man who, in the end, turned a gun on you, you claim, thereby entitling himself to your best efforts to redeem him, of course.
You're making it sound ridiculous. We were under terrible stress. Batley snapped.
And you didn't?
What?
You, who'd shown all the symptoms of acute stress earlier, remained ice-cold and calm, whilst Batley turned homicidal.
No, it's all wrong. He's got no right to say these things.
Who's that man?
It's lies, sir, all of it.
Be silent, sir. Usher.
Oh, you
Eject
can't
that
throw me
man
out.
from the court.
Not when I've got things to say.
Usher.
I'm not as dead as he hopes. I'm here, Major Fitton. Here alive, Corporal Batley.
The case of Fitton versus Pusey will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court.